Today's video, we're going to go back in time and have a chat about some of the pros and cons and maybe some of the differences between an ES-335 and also a Les Paul. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. So in my hands, I have two of the Lawsuit guitars. These are both made in Japan from a company called Tokai. I've owned Gibson variations of both of these, but for me, I ended up sticking with these. But this isn't about Tokai guitars. I thought what we'd do today, being that these are basically beautiful replicas of both an ES-335 and a Les Paul, I thought I'd chat about the differences, not only how they feel, how they sound, a little bit about the history about them both. We'll probably start with this guy over here, so let's get into it. One of the first assumptions most people have about a guitar like this, they think it's actually older than a Les Paul in terms of its design, but that's not actually the case. These came out in 1958. It was the first time that Gibson decided to make a thin line electric guitar that had F-holes, but also a maple block running down the center. And this helped drastically with feedback. For those of you who have played a guitar that doesn't have a block running down the center, you'll know just how unbearable it can be, especially if you want to play with a bit of drive. Now, these were aimed for blues and sort of jazz guitarists, but they've been used for so many records over the years, and a lot of guys even now that play with a lot more gain decide they want to use an ES-335 style guitar. Just a beautiful sounding guitar. I'm going to get to some of the comparisons about both of them in just a minute, but for right now, we're going to swap over to the Les Paul. Now, in terms of the Les Paul design, this goes all the way back to 1952. That's right, 6 years before the ES-335 style guitar, which, now that I'm thinking about it, makes a bit of sense because I actually had a VOS 56 reissue, which was a gold top with P90. So their P90 design goes all the way back to 1952, and it's just become a staple in terms of what people really go after in terms of a Les Paul. They either prefer a Les Paul with P90s, or they want a 57, 58, 59, somewhere around their Les Paul as well, which was their standard. I always think of guys like Mark Knopfler when I think of a late 50s Les Paul. That sound is great. Let's take a listen. So in terms of how both of these guitars feel to play, they're pretty much identical in terms of their neck shape. One of the great things about a Gibson neck is it really doesn't matter if you pick up an ES-335 or a Les Paul from around the same year, or in terms of if you go for a 50s style one or a 60s, you'll either get a wide sort of fatter neck, or you can get a more streamlined neck for that of the 60s. These are 50s necks, so they're quite chunky, and in the hand they don't really feel any different to each other, which is something that I really like. Now, in terms of the body design, being that I'm a little bit of a short ass, this one is a little bit different to play. It is quite a bit taller on my body, but it's not uncomfortable. This was my main gigging guitar, or an Epiphone version of this, for a long, long time. Then I got my Gibson, and then I landed on the Tokai, and the tones of this just really sold me. I'm a huge fan of this guitar, and I've got to tell you one other thing. This is much, much lighter than the Les Paul. So if you're looking for something like that, that's a huge advantage. One of the major advantages of a Les Paul over something like an ES-335 is the fact that this won't feed back anywhere near as easily. So if that's going to be a problem for you, or you're in close proximity to your amplifier, you're playing really loudly, this won't take off anywhere near as easily as the 335. So if you're a high gain player, odds are you're probably going to get more use out of this. Not to say you can't use that, but you got to be more specific about where you're standing in the room, or how close you are to the amp, or how loud you are as well. There's a few factors like that that a lot of people don't realize when they do get an ES-335. So this is probably the most versatile guitar in terms of usability, both clean and also with high gain. One of the biggest downsides of any Les Pauls, whether you're talking about an Epiphone, a Gibson, a Tokai, or whatever brand, is the fact they weigh a lot. And they weigh a lot because they're a mahogany body, mahogany neck, and they're just a big piece of beautiful looking wood. I really love the way that these look and feel. There's something about the weight that I'm used to, but I gotta tell you, I'm not a fan of playing this for more than about a set a night because it does get quite heavy. You'll feel it sort of cutting in on your shoulder. But there are plenty of variations of Les Pauls out there as well, not only in terms of the physical thickness of the body, but also if they're chambered, which means they've actually routed out holes under the actual top, which means it's gonna be lighter. There are also other alternatives. You could go for something like an SG, but they tend to be really neck heavy as well. In terms of balance and feel, the Les Paul's pretty much hard to beat in terms of just its compact size and design, but it does weigh that little bit more than this. Well, actually quite a bit more. And lastly, we're going to talk about modifications that you can make on your own when it comes to both of these guitars. So without question, the easiest guitar to make mods to is a Les Paul over an ES-335, and I'm going to tell you why. One of the biggest criticisms I have of a ES-335 is, look, some people know how to do all this stuff, but if you want to take out the pickups, for example, and change them out, there's nothing on the back. You've got to work through the F-holes, which makes it really, really fiddly. You got to rewire everything through the actual F-holes. So that's a big job, and it really requires experience for someone like me who doesn't want to spend time doing it on this guitar. I'd take it to someone to save the headache. Even just changing the switch, which I did, was a little bit more complicated than it would have been had I have needed to do it on the actual Les Paul. So making mods to an ES-335 can be pretty tough. Making mods to a Les Paul is a whole lot easier, in my opinion. Let me know if you've had experience with both and which one you prefer working on and why. For me, both of these guitars really ticked a lot of boxes, not only in how they compared to each other in terms of their feel, but how they sounded and how different they are to each other. I think right now I'm going through this ES-335 phase where I'm really enjoying playing this. Other times I just want to play a Les Paul. There's something really great about plugging one of these in and through a Marshall amp or anything like that and just getting a great tone without any pedals. These things just totally rock, no questions about it. But in terms of that classy and classic blues tone, this guitar's pretty hard to beat. It's really quite something else. Let me know in the comments which one you like best and why. Thanks again for watching. My name's Shane. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Catch you soon.